should be I would think, a fairly good short meeting. And we'll start off with just a motion to approve the agenda, please. Matt, and then on, thank you. The minutes from April 16th. I'm sure we've all been poured through them, so motion to approve.
Sorry, on a point of order, John, we have to approve the
Yes.
agenda first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. All in favor? Carried, nobody opposed. April 16th minutes, motion to approve. Peter and Joseph, thank you. No public presentations. There's only one item on the agenda.
Sorry, John, a point of order again. We have to vote
yeah.
on that.
I just keep moving on with those things.
I don't think
You're
it's
right,
going to
this
be
is going to be a
controversial.
fast
but-
meeting.
I said it was going to be a quick meeting. So, all in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. Only one item on there, and that's to do with the grants. I want to say that I wasn't really keen on asking for staff recommendations, but I think it was a really good thing to do, because it sort of enables us to not even look at some of the things that we would automatically agree to. So what we're presented with here now, I guess, is just look for questions on what the recommendation is. And I've got a couple of things I'd like to throw out, but Joseph, you want to?
Yeah, my question was, is there any way we could start off with like overall taking like a percentage, maybe $25 off everything, and this would move forward from there?
I don't, if we're following the recommendations, we are within our proposed budget of $20,000. So you want to cut it further? Is that what you're suggesting, Joseph?
No, that's fine. We'll go with what they have. I probably didn't catch up to this point, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Lisa has joined us. Peter, you want to say something?
Well, yes, thank you. Well, if I would suggest maybe if we have anything we'd like to challenge or debate, then suggest it. There's a few things there I would bring up for debate if you find that's acceptable.
Yeah, I thought that's the only thing we can do. So if you want to start, that'd be helpful.
Okay, well, I'd start first with the para hockey, grant. Staff suggesting $2,000 for that. I don't know if we have a place putting that money in there or not. I feel it's not, so I would recommend not giving anything to that request.
Do you want to keep going, or do you want to just deal with that first, Peter?
We may as well deal with that for now. Yeah, then we'll move on if we can get a consensus.
Ron, do you want to comment?
I have the opposite feeling. I am for the $2,000. It's one of those things. I know this is sort of not directly from MODL or the town of Bridgewater, but I think it's one of those things that we've been continually asking those two other entities, the MODL for support, and they've been very, very generous this year in coming through for us. This is also a national event that would give us some exposure. Having gone to some of the games of the last one that was here, to me, I think it would be money well spent and show that we are willing to partner with MODL and our neighboring municipalities, that this could be money well spent.
Peter?
Well, the reason I'm opposed to this grant is for several reasons. First of all, it is not, it's not our town, not our community, it's not our tax dollar. It's like our tax dollar going to another community. which I don't think that's what we pay our tax dollars for. Secondly, the facilities that we have for these events are already highly subsidized by whatever municipality they're being, hosted in. And I see no reason why we would give them $2,000 and we don't give the youth jazz $2,000. I mean, that one was scrapped. I agree with that, actually. But I mean, we're supporting a sporting event, but we're not supporting an arts or cultural event. So I don't think any of those should be recognized.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this?
Sorry, John.
Rachel, please.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with the idea that we should be partnering on events like this. We don't contribute directly to the operation of Luneberg County Lifestyle Center, but it is what it title suggests, Luneberg County-wide facility. It has facilities that are that offer things that we cannot in our community. And in view of how we are to see ourselves as part of a larger entity when it comes to, programs like regional economic development, this is something that would have fallen under an umbrella like that. And these are kind of events that only happen if everybody works cooperatively and collaboratively. So my question would be, are they going to be able to go ahead with this event given the environment? But I would be supportive of funding, whether or not the amount might be something I'd be okay to discuss, but I certainly wouldn't like us to take it off the table.
Peter?
Well, just one more comment. I mean, once again, it's the tax dollar, and you'll hear this from me probably a few more times, but it's the tax dollar that we collect from our citizens for the infrastructure that they use. Their streets clean, their garbage collected, your toilets flushing, all these sort of things. And to collect money from the people of the town of Luneberg to give to someone else doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And if you go into the county, the people don't even appreciate the taxes that they got to pay for the facility in the town of Luneberg or in the town of Bridgewater. So the LCLC alone. But and again, these events are discretionary, they're not necessary, and I don't feel like we should be taking tax dollar and supporting these events that are discretionary.
Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really don't have a particularly firm view one way or the other, but I'm just wondering if staff could weigh in and explain their reasoning, and I thank staff for all the suggestions.
Lisa, did you want to respond to that?
Certainly. Well, I guess we applied the same theory across the board, as noted at the bottom of the summary, that if it was an event that had been sponsored in the past, it would be either at the level that it was sponsored at in 1920, if that was applicable. Obviously, this item had been a number of years since it had been, and so it was either at the 1920 event or at the current ask. I would let council know, or the members of the committee didn't know, that the last time this event was held, the amount that was sponsored was only $1,000.
Ron, please.
Just to continue my thought process from before, as the mayor stated, this is a regional event. It is a event that will actually bring people to town. The last time they actually had a bus tour through town. So there will be people that are attending this event that will venture to Luneberg and spend dollars if it is, able to run, they will come to town, they will eat in our restaurants, they will shop in our stores. So there is a spin-off of this event that will trickle into Lunenburg from people that are attending the event. So even though we're taking our taxpayers' dollars, some of our merchants will see a good return on that investment.
Rachel, please.
Yeah, further to that, I think if you spoke to other members of the business community that rely on visitation and rely on marketing and so on of our town, they would see this as a positive event. And Lunenburg is always a draw for anybody that comes to the region. We're undoubtedly able to get spin-off, but from a more general perspective, these things can't happen in rural Nova Scotia without the collaboration of all neighboring municipalities. And if we are going to stick to only things that happen right in our town all the time, they will do, the return factor will certainly kick in. And I just think it's with what we're talking about in Project Luneberg, we're talking about collaboration. We're talking about working with a broader community to benefit our residents. This is an event that our residents will attend. This is an event that our business community will benefit from in the short term and the longer term. We did have huge spin-off. Kids from our school went to the events that they held, and it was a huge hit. They were benefit greatly from that exposure and that participation. So I just don't think I think we need to think broader when it comes to what the impacts are, because they're not always as tangible as fee-for-service kind of services sometimes are.
Peter?
Well, I'm not against the event by no means, but let them charge an extra $1 admission or something. Don't take the money away from my retired neighbor that that he's not going to benefit from that at all.
And maybe if I can put my 2 cents in that, I think it's a good project. I guess when I first saw it, I had 2 thoughts. One was that if we can do this and stay within, the planned amount, and then I thought of how, how the county has kind of upped their input somewhat, and I think we should do this. So, Peter,
Yeah,
did you want to? Peter?
Well, I understand, but there's a reason MODL gives us money for our facility. It's because their taxpayer comes and uses it. That's the reason why, right? This doesn't help make it available to our taxpayer. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Ron?
I'm going to put forward that we approve the $2,000 amount for the Lunenburg County Lifestyle Center for the Canadian Tire Para Hockey Cup.
Is there a seconder for that? I'm assuming that was a motion. Rachel,
sir.
second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Rachel, you're on mute.
Just notice that. I was just going to say yes. In seconding that, I would just say we may want to put some sort of qualifier on that, perhaps, about.
Yeah, if it actually happens.
Well, yeah, and not that we may need to, but just wise to maybe.
Peter?
Well,
Matt?
then I see no reason why we're not giving money to the youth jazz for their $2,000. What's the difference?
Can we deal with this first and then we'll come back to that if you like?
Well, we're going to run out of money if we.
I know.
Yeah.
Matt?
Well, I was just going to say maybe somebody should move to approve the whole list and then we can amend accordingly. So we're not doing all these little separate approvals, but whichever way you prefer.
I I thought of that, but then I thought we're gonna end up with amendment on amendment on amendment, if we do want to change it, so. I think it's probably better, I'm hoping there's not gonna be too many of these, but
We shouldn't, yeah, I'm fine not talking about it, whichever way, whatever gets us out the door quick.
Rachel, please.
Just kind of thing, to Matt's point, which is good, but we struggle with how to deal with this list every year. And I don't think we've still landed on an ideal one, but maybe deferring this motion till further on in the meeting when we've had a chance to look at more of them to see if because as I stated originally, I am in favor of, obviously, of approving support for this, but the amount is something I'd still be, to Councillor Mosier's point, be open to discussing. We previously given 1,000 to a similar event. I think Ms. Dagley shared with us. So that's why it might be harder to approve the approval and the amount at this stage when we haven't vetted some of the others.
And so how do we do that? How do we defer that then? Because we may end up with 5 or 6 motions all deferred till the end. Is that okay to do?
I think so.
Matt, is that okay to do?
I don't see any.
Oh, we lost him. Wait a minute, there he's back. Wait, he's gone.
I keep hitting the space bar, and instead of doing that, it goes with my video for some reason. But anyway, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that.
Okay, Peter, did you want to comment?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, and we'll just have that discussion over a couple of the other ones, maybe that, that's brought forward, and then we can go back and nail it down.
What I liked about this approach is that there may be 3 or 4 things we want to talk about, but we're not going to talk about a lot of the other things. So I thought it was a good approach. So, okay, so we'll defer that until later on. So who wants to take another run at something? Peter.
Me, of course. I miss Danny not being here. He was always good for this. Folk Harbor Festival. I mean, for the summer concerts, that's fine as long as that's going to take place. But for their festival that they're not having, I don't know why we would be making the contribution to them in that regard.
Didn't they mention something in their application of why they would need something? Lisa?
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I had reached out to them when their event was canceled and asked about their application. And they did request that council consider some form of sponsorship because they have many fixed costs for their organization, and they just don't know, without being able to raise funds in the traditional manner, if they will be able to continue.
Can I ask something about this? Like with the $5,000, was that inclusive of the in-kind services, or was that over and above that?
No, the in-kind would have been over and above that.
So is there not a substantial savings somewhere else in there then for us?
So in the list, then the suggestion list is only $1,000 sponsorship, not $5,000. The $5,000 was the request of their original application when their event was being held. They did not suggest an amount for support without their festival. They didn't indicate an amount.
I have a couple of thoughts around the concert series. I guess my first thought was, I mean, we're talking them starting in about 4 weeks, thereabouts. Again, as Rachel pointed out, they may not happen. Events may not be happening. I was kind of worried about us being seen to be promoting a gathering, because they do get a substantial number of people at these, and the timing might be such that they'll get even more, people wanting to get out. And I'm just not sure we should be seen to be promoting a gathering. that was one thought. And the other thought was that, like we're taking it over now, or we have taken it over. If they're gonna book 10 events, they had contracted to pay $60 an event, so that's $600 that either we're going to get as income, or if we're going to give it to them, then maybe we could take it off at $2,500. But I mean, they have a contract for $60 per event. If the festival was on, I think it was $225 a day. But suffice it to say that if they're gonna use it for 10 Sundays, would we be charging them the $60 like the Heritage Society did, or were we just going to donate that as well? Lisa, did you have any thoughts as far as any income from that, or?
I actually would defer to Ms. Renton about that, because I haven't, I hadn't considered that new ownership change, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Lisa. And then the document just came in today, Your Worship, to transfer the ownership, and that will have to be ratified by council at the June 9th meeting. I haven't as well either had an opportunity, and I think we need to consider what rental rates might be applicable, and when they would be charged and that sort of thing. So these are some of the things that are still somewhat up in the air as we try and figure out how we manage this facility. We do have a draft license agreement document, but we haven't figured out any of the fees or anything like that. I think it wouldn't be prudent to look at any departure really from what the society charged in the past. So to answer your question, don't really have a specific answer at this point in time, but can certainly take it under consideration.
B, wasn't that taking over the contracts, wasn't that one of the conditions that the Heritage Society set out?
Yes.
Honor those two agreements, a wedding and this. So, I would think at a minimum, we could reduce the 2,500 to 1,900 and include the rental of the bandstand for their Sunday concerts. Anyways, Peter, you want to jump in?
Well, yeah, that was a good opportunity for council to consider the money they save here with these grants can go towards the upkeep of the bandstand, because that's going to be a new expense for us. So we could shave $5 to $8 grand off of this. We'll cover the repairs of that over the next year.
Rachel?
And oh, sorry.
Rachel, please.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say Peter could finish up, but I was just along the same lines, not quite as optimistic about or along the same train of thought as reducing it by that much, but certainly think that we should take an amount off that would be in lieu of rent, basically, so that the understanding is that rent will still be charged and in future years, or that we would be accounting for that somehow for their saving and are doing it. And to your points earlier, John, I think I think there's two trains of thought. We have to move ahead and try to facilitate gradual reopening and reoffering of things, just keeping in mind that there's going to be new ways of doing that. And so I wouldn't want to simply do it, not support the concerts because we're afraid they might not be, but again, with some sort of caveat that we're supporting them with the understanding that they'll be adhering to the strictest guidelines of at the most current guidelines of public health in whatever they do, which may mean on certain weeks they'd be canceled or something. Like weeks when it rains, they would normally go indoors. Well, they may not. They would just have to cancel it and not go indoors. Things like that, and that may come with a reduction in what we would give them towards that as well.
I seem to remember in the Heritage contract that if they did move it indoors, that I think it was the rent was reduced to $30. So there was still some payment, minor payment, but no, I wouldn't mind even reducing it to $2,000 from $2,500 and donate the use of the bandstand. So, Peter?
Well, like two things, I guess, with regards to the bandstand. Again, that's an event that we have supported in the past. It's an event that I don't mind supporting because it's available to everybody in the community, all ages, no matter what, no matter what your interest you can enjoy those concerts. And then getting back to the Folk Harbor Festival itself, I know everybody's going to cry hard times because of COVID. So, but that doesn't mean that we have to grant them money for an event that doesn't happen. I don't think that's the right approach.
Anyone else? Rachel? You're muted, Rachel.
I pressed the mute off up by my picture and not down where I'm supposed to be, which doesn't work. It takes me a while to clue into that. So sorry, I was just saying, I think it seems like Councillor Mosier and I are doing most of the talking, but so sorry about that with those apologies. I really appreciate the points and echo them as far as the concert series. And I think in these times when there's a reduction in everything that's offered, something like this, which can be so kind of universally appreciated and enjoyed, I'd like to see us support as best we're able. So I'm all for that. And likewise with the funding towards their operating, I'm not opposed to that, but there's a degree of fairness, or, if we can do this for other organizations who would come to us similarly, then that would be great. But if we're not able or willing to support others, then that would be the deciding factor for me is, how fair can we apply this kind of a grant to other like organizations, although Folk Harbor is a big one, and I know they have huge expenses, greater than most of the others.
Ron?
The only point I would make to that is there's some events that may not happen but don't have the same overhead as what the Folk Harbor would have, and there are some other institutions, societies, whatever, that we are making some accommodations for, be it less rent or deferred rent or payment options. So we are helping a lot of other people as well in slightly various or different ways, but we are offering some support to other groups.
One consideration that I had on all of this, and I'll throw this out if we're going to be doing the same thing. Like, are we sticking to this 20,000? And if we end up, let's say, at 18.5, then at either the mayor's discretion or whatever, we have that balance to use for things that could jump up at us. Because I suspect in these times there could be a number of things that sort of pop up. And so when I was thinking, well, we can take $600 off of that, and we're left with, I don't know, 1,400 or so. That would be a good thing. I don't mean, so my question is, are we going to commit to the 20,000, or if it ends up being 19, is that where we stop? Because I think that should be a consideration for me anyways.
So if I may, Deputy Mayor,
Please.
certainly the $20,000 is the amount that's included in your budget that you approved the other week. And so whatever amount did you settle on for your grants, it would be, that was my thought, was that whatever balance was unexpended at this point, if there were other groups that came ahead or new events that cropped up, that those would be discussed by council at that time, and consideration could be given.
Thank you. So if we were to reduce this by $600, then the balance might end up being $600 to the good then, and available later. Okay, thank you. Matt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to point out that, as I understand it, with the staff suggestions, they only amount to just over 19,000 as it is. So we do have a buffer already built in, right, Lisa?
Yes.
That is correct, yes.
Peter?
Yeah, through to Lisa, do we have any provisions in the budget for upkeep on the bandstand for this year?
The thoughts were that we had hoped that it would be able to be accommodated within the current parks and playgrounds budget.
Okay, thank you.
Joseph, I just realized that, I thought you had left the meeting because I've only got 6 panels up. And so if you've had your hand up, I apologize because you weren't in the 6.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think it's good that we keep sponsoring the concert, the Sunday concert. I go along with the reduced rate. I think it's good for the, for the community and the taxpayers. And so I'm on board with that. And with that event that we want to have, I think it's, I agree with what Peter is saying, but I think overall, it makes a lot of sense to us as a community. The more people come visit us, the better. And, the businesses have put a lot, haven't had a good year. So I think that event, if it does happen, will be a big welcome, like, to the town, like Lamp does the same thing. They have a lot of people coming. So I think it builds our community and it builds the people that come here. And I think it's a good way to show that, we're supportive overall. And yes, I know the taxpayers count, but, they get a lot of benefit out of it too. So that's my take on those 2 items. Thank you.
We haven't had anybody make any motions to any effect. So is there any will out there to change any of these suggestions?
Well, I'll make the motion to both of them if you want, or one at a time.
Or
move it
probably one
forward.
at a time would be better. So I think you were suggesting that we reduce the amount by the rental amount for the
Yeah,
bandstand?
that's good. That's a good sort of percentage. I think that works. They get something, we have something in the back if we need it.
Well, they probably haven't thought that through. So, to them, it should be the same. They're still going to be getting basically $2,500.
Yeah.
For the concert series.
Well,
And would you put a proviso in there that if it doesn't happen, that,
yeah, of course.
or I don't know how that works, Lisa. Do we give them the money right away, or do we wait and see if they actually can do them?
Well, we can certainly do whatever the committee approves. We can hold it to the end of their series, but they may need the funding at least partially in advance. Certainly, however.
No, I was just thinking if we get a resurgence in the virus, and so that events like this are canceled, and they've already got the money, we'd have to get it back.
That would be correct, yes. So it could be challenging for the organization, though, if we said we'd hold it to the very end.
Yeah, no, I wasn't suggesting that. No. So that's one motion. Joseph, is there a seconder for that?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I could just have a little clarification on the motion. So this is for the festival at large or specifically for the concert series?
I believe this was for the concert series, and I guess the motion would be just to reduce the $2,500 to $1,900. Is probably
Okay,
the
thank you.
simplest way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, but you
Thank
can
you.
craft the motion. I'm good with that.
Okay, so it's for the concert series. We're talking about from 2,500 to 1,900. Thank you.
Peter, you want to comment or second?
Well, I will second, but I just want to ask the question before I second the motion. So are we still charging them rent?
That wasn't in the motion, but I'm assuming that if we take the $600 off, that's in lieu of them paying rent.
So then we take $600 off and we don't charge them rent.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Well, why wouldn't we just leave it as it is and charge them rent? Because they're already used to getting $2,500 and they're already used to paying rent.
Well, we could. Probably a little more complicated for Lisa.
I think it would be less complicated, wouldn't it?
I actually agree with Councillor Mosier. It would be less complicated that way.
Okay, then
So if Joseph would amend that, I'd be happy to second it.
Yeah, I'll amend that, Peter.
Well, actually, it wouldn't require a motion, would it? I mean, if you're gonna leave it the same, it doesn't. there's no-
Exactly, we just say that's good to go, yes.
Yeah, as long as we're gonna charge them, then I'm fine with that too.
Then
'Cause otherwise they're-
I'm good to go then if that's the case.
Okay, so let's
All right.
let's move over to the other aspect of Oak Harbor then. The $1,000. Is there anybody want to make any changes there, Peter?
Well, I find it hard to support an event that's not gonna happen. I'd rather not, I'd like to just take that off completely. We've given them the full amount for their concerts, which we assume is gonna happen. And I think this year we should not support them if they're not having the event.
Is that a motion, Peter?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Is there a seconder for that motion?
I'll second that one.
Oh, okay, I just need a little help. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Can you,
Yes, please.
so can we just repeat that? Moved and seconded that?
That we do not support the Folk Harbor Festival this year.
And just for
Thank
the
you.
general request.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ron, please.
I've got a question then. Are we going to defer this until the end or how's that going to work?
Oh, wait.
Gonna say, because we already deferred
Yeah.
one, so how do we deal with this one separately, or do we have to defer this one as well, didn't we?
Well, when I asked before, I guess we could end up with 3 or 4 deferrals and then when we're at the end and then deal with them at that time. Is that acceptable?
I think we should deal with this one and put it under.
Well, we haven't voted on it yet, so just,
Yeah.
If that's the case,
It's
we should
nothing
have
to
put the
defer at
first
the
one
moment.
under.
Peter,
Well, taking money away is a lot easier than adding money on. So if we add
Doesn't
money
matter,
on,
principle's the same.
not if we all agree that we don't want to do this particular event.
Well, I'm voting in the negative then, so we don't all agree.
It's like when Tyler was on.
Rachel?
I just wanted to say, I think, again, I qualify a lot of my thoughts on this. I don't disagree to take it off now, but the request isn't really what we're even talking about now. We're talking about the new reality, which we're privileged to because our staff was wise enough to kind of go ahead and ask. You've asked for this, now you're not having, so what? So they've kind of said, well, we'd really still like your help. There hasn't been a formal proposal or request for us. I would be happy with, eventually, I agree with Councillor Bachman that I think we should defer all of the motions on this, but my thoughts are if we take it off the table right now, but keep that $1,000 in our back pocket. So if they come back to us with a proposal down the road as to why we should support them in their for some other reason further down the road, we may have some resources to do that. But I'm not comfortable doing it just, knowing that they probably need help, but without the finer details, I guess.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Please.
When I did reach out to the group, I guess just to the mayor's comment, they asked if they needed to do a fuller new application. I told them at that time I did not feel it was necessary, but if that is something the group wants, certainly they would be willing to do that. But that was certainly something that I told them that was not necessary at this time, just so that we were clear about that.
Rachel?
I was just going to say, and follow up, that does change it a little bit because that was, but they didn't anyway. They didn't think to do that on their own, which I would have thought maybe they would. I'm certainly sympathetic to their situation, especially with what they have for overhead with the Opera House and so on. And it's a huge undertaking that's been, nobody anticipated that they were now not going to have any income to deal with that property. So their situation is certainly different than others, but it seems a little bit like a fish out of water to me right now. So
We have a motion to remove it. That's been moved and seconded. And so we'll defer that to the end then with,
I would rather just defer all of those, make the motions, but kind of revisit them at the end when we've had chance to discuss and reflect on some of the other things that are coming into play.
is that okay with everyone then? We'll just move on then. Okay. Okay, next. Who's got? Joseph, you want to?
No, I'm just moving.
Peter, back to you.
All right, of course. Who else hates spending money more than me? Foundation of the Arts, they're looking for $1,200, and we gave them in-kind and rental. So my first question is that $1,200 in kind, or is it just cash, and are they still looking for rentals?
So the requests from last year to this year were quite different. Last year was a request for some space to hold some planning meetings, which we had approved last year. This year's request is for a dollar donation for $1,200 towards they say a she shed tour. I don't know if COVID may impact that for them as well. The tour is scheduled for the fall.
Peter?
Well, then I move that we would remove that from our process. So remove the $1,200.
Is there a seconder for that? Matt, thank you. How do I? Well, I guess there's only, I'm missing somebody here.
I don't think we need to have the whole screen up. We can put it, yeah, that's better. Now we can see everybody.
Ronnie put his video off, John. That's what you're missing. Very respect.
Oh, okay. And so we have a motion from Peter to remove it. Is there a seconder for that? Oh, and
I
Matt
already
seconded.
did.
And you did. So again, we'll defer that to the end and go back to the list then. Any other input? Suggestions, Peter?
St. Vincent de Paul. Again, you know, this is a charity which we take tax dollars and give it and not only do we not give it to a specified charity, we give it to someone else at their discretion to give to a charity. It's kind of like if I give a memorial donation to the Heart Foundation and they turn around and give it to the Cancer Foundation, I mean, what you know, what is my money being used for here again? So I don't see where we have the right to give our money to a charity for their discretion to give it away. Whether it's a good cause or not, that's not a problem. If I want to give to a charity, I will give to a charity and I'll get my tax receipt and go home. I don't want to pay my taxes to have them go to a charity. It's just not efficient.
I was actually disappointed to see us reduce that amount. You know, it's specifically for people in Luneberg that would be in need. It's not for them to make a donation to another organization. So St. Vincent de Paul is, you know,
yeah, but who determines the need? It's who determines the need, and that's the problem, right? So what one person may determine needful, the other person may say, no, I don't think that's needful.
Can I weigh in, Deputy
yes,
Mayor?
please, Lisa.
Certainly, I just wanted to note that, you know, the group does sponsor people who are struggling to make their basic needs, such as paying their light bill, things like that. And so these funds are returned in that manner for customers of our utility at times who are struggling.
Rachel?
So, no, thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on what Ms. Dagley had said, because I shared Councillor Mosier's opinion in large part when it came to charities like this, because it just didn't seem right that But when I looked into it and talked to staff about how it actually functions, and that it does directly impact citizens of this community who are struggling, and they're in ways that we wouldn't know otherwise, or wouldn't be able to help. They do target people who are struggling financially and help them in very tangible ways, and it is community specific. And it's just a way of funneling our dollars in a way that we can't as easily with tax relief or with some other things. So I do think this organization is a bit unique that way. And I know it's been put to good use for people in our community in the past. So I do see benefit of it.
Could I make a motion then that we put it back to their $1,000 request? Would anybody be willing to second that? So, Matt, thank you. And Joseph, thank you. So we'll defer that with the other 3 motions, I believe. Unless there's going to be any more discussion on any of the other items. Peter?
Yeah, I'd like to reduce the VON to $500.
I'm sorry, which one?
VON. It's the very
Is there
last
a
one.
Joseph, did you want to say something?
Yeah, with my treatments, I've been using them at times to take me into Halifax and pick me up. They offer a very good service. I would support what they want, or kick it back a little bit, but I would keep it close to what they're asking. They do a lot of work. They also deliver a lot of frozen foods to people in need, and take around a lot of the older people too. So I think they do a very good service. That's personally from me using the service myself.
Peter, your motion was to reduce it to $500, is that? Or was it-
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And is there a seconder for that?
Oh, we got crickets, but that's okay. I just, how do we say no to any other charity then that applies to us? That's the part that, I want to be consistent, and I want to be real for what our role is here. And our role is not a charity. It's to provide, municipal services and a quality of life in our community. And we all have the ability to donate to these charities and not take people's tax dollars to donate to them. So if you take my tax dollar away from me and donate, and you're going to give it to a charity that I may not support, but I'd rather support my other charity, but I can't now, because now instead of having $100, I only got 75 left, because you've taken the other 25 to give it away somewhere where I don't want it given away to. And that's my problem with any charities. Not that they're good causes. I'd love to give it to all of them, but I don't know how we draw the line and say, this is a good charity, that isn't a good charity.
Rachel?
I appreciate what you're saying, Peter, and I, as I said, I struggle with this whole charity giving as well, but I do think that there is a difference in some of them. Like I said, with St. Vincent de Paul, it goes directly to helping people in a very tangible way in our community, in a way, on a level that as a municipality, I think people are supportive of. And the same with the VON service. They provide transportation. We've had all sorts of discussions about public transportation and the need for public transportation. And a lot of it is around people who are most vulnerable. People can't afford their own vehicles or and medical need, or older. And the VON addresses a lot of that in the service that they now currently provide. And so similar to the way that I see that we collaborate with other municipalities on certain programs and projects, I see this as a collaboration with a charitable organization that provides a service that does benefit directly people in our community. So unlike the Heart and Stroke Foundation or Arthritis Society or whatever, where it's more global, and I don't see that we have a role in supporting charities like that. This is a very direct, feet on the ground, which is kind of where we are, grassroots assistance to people in a very tangible way. And that's how I make the differentiation in my own mind in granting support, or my support for applications like that.
Joseph, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, just a comment that seeing where I live, I see that van coming in the driveway there 3 or 4 times a day on, I won't say most days, but at least 3 or 4 times a week.
Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to agree with Councillor Mosier and the mayor on the broad principle that I think, part of the reason we grapple with this every year is that we don't have criteria that say, this is how we prioritize, this is where we will put money, this is where we won't. The staff suggestions are very good this year from the perspective of just having something suggested to riff off of, but we also aren't, looking at this from the perspective of developing criteria. And I think that may be something we should do in the future.
I'll ask again if there's a seconder for Peter's motion.
That's
Third
okay, I'll
time.
withdraw.
What's that?
No, I'll withdraw. I'll withdraw.
Okay, that's easy. Rachel?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to mention too that the grant policy does speak to many of these items, and it is the fundamental principle by which grants are authorized and the justification for them, the rationalization. And what we have to remember too is often a $500 or $1,000 grant from the town can be leveraged to get grants from other levels of government at the provincial and the federal level, or from private foundations or individuals. So it's facilitating that partnership for community volunteer groups that's so essential. If they can demonstrate, as you know, just as we often have to do in grant applications, that we have other partners at the table, it makes a huge difference and can really help the multiplier effect of the contribution the community makes.
Thank you. Rachel, do you want to comment?
Oh, I was just going to say, again, the amount is my hang up too with the VON. It is a healthy donation, and depending on where we want to land ultimately, I would be open to perhaps a reduction of that amount of grant, but I certainly do feel it should be higher than 500. And so that I didn't feel I could support Councillor Mosier's motion, but I'm not hard line on the two either if we're grappling when it gets to the end of things.
Anybody? Peter, do you want to make another motion or?
No, well, I'm just now we're getting down to the end here, so I'm just going to plug in for the music nerds now. So we're going to give money to a sporting event. I want to see the music nerds get some money. So we've canceled their $2,000 for the jazz. So that we can't bring on, almost double the amount of students there. So I think we should be giving them their money. So I'd move we bring the music nerds back into the program.
Do you have an amount?
2,000, that's what they're asking for.
Is there a seconder for that? Matt, thank you. So we'll put that on the deferred list as well, or is there some discussion of it now?
John?
Yeah, sorry, Rachel.
Yeah, no, it's not something I've ever heard of before. So some of this goes into, proven need, but also proven benefit with some of these organizations. I just opened the thing to try to refresh as to, they're paying instructors. I don't know who it's increasing to. It's a small number of people that benefit from this. Apparently, that they're going to increase the numbers to, under 20 people. So I just certainly not in favor of a $2,000 grant, but with another relook at the rationale for supporting an organization like this, there may be some merit to it, but certainly I don't see the generalized benefit that I see in other similar cultural organizations.
Ron?
I have to thank you. I have to second what the mayor's thoughts are. And a little contrary to what Councillor Mosier's earlier comments are, they're going to increase the number of students, but are any of these students actually residents of the town of Luneberg? Is any of that money actually coming back into the town or going to benefit anybody, a resident of the town? So to give them $2,000 when it may not even be anybody in the town, or for that matter, the surrounding municipalities, I see absolutely no reason to give them $2,000.
So, Matt, did you second Peter's motion? Was that motion seconded?
Yeah, I did.
So it's on our deferred list again. Any further discussion of that, or should we move on? We're pretty much getting close to the end, I think. And we'll have to come back, bring all these things back and do them one at a time, I guess. No other thoughts? Okay, Ron, please.
So we've
Unmute.
got, what, 5 deferred? So that means everything else that staff had suggested we can already approve, or are we gonna go back and once we're in the middle of these 5, start to beat those to death as well? Or can I make a motion to approve the other, however many there were, and then we just debate the 5?
Could we just maybe debate the 5 and then just whatever changes are made, we approve the whole thing? I thought that's what I thought.
Well,
we would do.
that was my question, which is the best way to do it?
I like the idea of just doing the 5 and then whatever total that is, that's what it is.
Okay, so everything else remains as it is on the charts.
Unless somebody wants to make another suggestion, which I haven't seen. Okay, so Rachel? Unmute.
Wondered about the C school. Just because we've supported similar things in the past, dory racing, that kind of, they operate very much under the radar in our community, and they do provide a very interesting kind of a service, a program for youth. Again, I don't know how many of them are Luneberg town based, but they are based in town for at least part of their program. And it's very consistent with what we want to see in our town as far as related to the water, bringing people into the community, economic driver kind of idea. So their ask is huge, and I think it would have to be a token amount, but I'm wondering if there isn't some, again, sort of just mutual support kind of demonstration that we value what they do in the community, amount that we could offer them. And I don't have a amount in
A
mind.
suggested amount, Rachel, or?
I would throw out $1,000, but
As a
that's-
motion,
yeah.
would there be a seconder to that? Okay, we'll go with Ron. Okay, so one more deferral. And Lisa, can I ask, like, if we, how best to do this? Like, if you take, what do we have, 6 motions there? If we start out with the amount that's remaining, 15,000 or 16,000, and then as each motion is dealt with, we could get an update on the balance. I don't know,
Well, I guess I could provide what I think might be the total of the motions to so far.
yes.
And I may even suggest, I don't know, when I in some ways wondered if we needed a 5-minute recess, but from all the motions I think that have been made, to debate at this point. I believe the total is $20,115, which is over, obviously, the budgeted amount.
But that's with the things taken out?
With the items, I believe the items that were, the motions that were made to take things out, yes.
I think the
Okay.
trouble there, Lisa, is I'm not sure there's consensus on removing them.
Exactly, so.
No, that's why I was saying, you know, that if we take those 5 motions or whatever, if we took them out completely
Okay,
and then say, okay, so we're starting with a balance of say 14,000 or something. And then as the motions are dealt with, we could just get an updated amount, I guess.
certainly. Well, then could I just recap what I think the motions
Yeah,
are?
you,
And to
you're-
take those out, because it is certainly challenging in this electronic format
Yeah.
to make sure that we've captured everything. So I believe the first motion that we might be talking about to take something back was there was discussion around the Luneberg County Lifestyle Center and the para hockey event. So I will take that $2,000 off there. And then the next one was around the Folk Harbor Society Festival sponsorship or general sponsorship of the organization. So we'll take that $1,000 off.
maybe we could, I don't know, maybe.
Then the jazz,
Yeah.
pardon me,
No,
Deputy
no,
Mayor?
go ahead, please.
And then these might be slightly out of order. I'm just doing it down through the list. Then there was a suggestion to add $5,000 or $2,000. I'm sorry, misspoke there. $2,000 for the Youth Jazz Society. Do we want to add that in or just leave that off at this point? And so I'm going to leave it off for temporarily here at this point. Take the $1,200 off for the Luneberg Foundation of the Arts. And add the extra 250. Do I add the extra 250 for the VON? Or not the VON, the St. Vincent de Paul? See, this is where, and do I take the $2,000 off for the VON? Because I think that's where you're at, is the 13,115. But then there were some suggestions to add things back in as well, like additions that were 0. Or I
Maybe-
could, or if we could pause for like a 5-minute recess, I could highlight the things that we haven't had any debate on, just add up all those amounts. And then we can go back at the individual items that have motions with them.
Shall we take a break, Matt?
Yeah, just before that, I'm happy to take a break. I think it's a good idea. At the risk of muddying the waters, Lisa, could you maybe try to, in that time, find a suitable compromise that we could all live with so we don't spend another hour discussing this?
I can
No, I
try.
think we have,
You can
I think we have-
try.
we've got motions we need to deal with that have made, and I think it'll go quickly. So let's take a
All
5-minute
right,
break.
I'll trust you.
Yeah, 5 or 10 minutes. What do you think?
I think 5 minutes, but if 10 minutes is fine too.
Okay, 10 minutes. 10 minutes then. So the
Okay.
time is. So how about at
2:20?
2:20?
There you go. All right.
All
thank
right.
you.
2:20.
10115 is what you had?
No, just.
Not quite all back. Give it another 30 seconds for Joseph to join us, perhaps. Okay, it looks like we're all back. And I thought while I was gone that if Lisa can give us a starting number and then we just deal with them in the order that they were moved and seconded, would probably be correct.
Okay, yes, certainly, Deputy Mayor. So if I took away any of the items that we had motions around, the total is $12,115 at this point.
And, and
And I guess I could tell you that I think if you approved all the motions as they're on the floor, the total would be 20,115.
okay, but you'll be able to give us a running total after each motion.
That
Right.
that is correct. Yes, certainly.
Peter, you want to?
Well, then I suggest we take $115 off one of the things, and then we're full Monty, and we don't have to have this needle poked in our eye again in August. When someone comes walking up to us and asking for a request, we can just say, sorry, money's spent.
Any other comments before we start dealing with the motions? Ron?
Just wondering, Peter's idea is somewhat appealing, but I'm just wondering if we can come to a consensus on the dollar amount before we actually go to a resolution. I don't know if that's possible. Some people are full amount, some people a lesser amount. Say, you know, like the first one up is $2,000. If it doesn't pass at two, is there a way to come to a consensus of possibly $1,000 before we had a vote, knowing that there still may be opposition, but at least then we're not going back and forth 2 or 3 different times? Is there a way to possibly do that?
Well, the way would be somebody would have to make another motion, I would assume. But I guess my feel is that I still would like to have something, because I do believe we're going to come up with things that it'll be heartbreaking if we can't do a little bit of something, down the road. Peter?
I just find this extremely agonizing, and it's just as agonizing when someone asks us in September as it is now. So wouldn't it be so easy if all staff has to say when someone comes in is, I'm sorry, the money has all been allocated. That's all they have to say. And then they'll go home and nobody's being given any other special treatment.
Okay, B, what was the first motion?
I'm going to look to Lisa for some assistance. I'm sorry.
Well, I believe that the first motion was for around the para hockey event with the Luneberg Community or County Lifestyle Center. And
Yes, I have that recorded.
And I believe
yeah.
there was a motion to
For $2,000, yeah.
There was one to not include it, and then there was one to include it at the $2,000 amount.
I had the one recorded for $2,000.
All right, I had notes of both, so.
But I don't believe it was recorded. I believe that was deferred as well.
I only remember the one motion.
I can read the other ones off if you want. Yeah.
Peter, do you remember, like, was there actually a motion to remove it first? I didn't think so. It's just.
Yeah, I thought there was, but I don't think that proceeded.
That may
That's what
just
my
be my
notes
notes
reflect.
as the discussion carried on.
No,
Yeah.
there was a discussion about removing it, and then Ronnie, I think it was Ronnie who moved, including it at the $2,000 level, and the mayor seconded.
Yeah, I don't record the names of the movers and seconders, but that does reflect my
Or maybe
notes.
I
Yeah.
seconded, I don't know, but somebody seconded.
But would it require a motion if it wasn't changing? it's $2,000 there.
Well, we haven't approved any of the staff recommendations yet, so it still would.
Right. Yes, because you were breaking these out as opposed to a global adoption of the recommendations.
Rachel?
I was just going to agree with just what Matt and B said, that I think we still need the motion because this was one of the ones that was being debated. So
All right.
just to land on where we want to land on.
Matt?
I'll move to amend it to the $1,000 level, just because I think that's probably the closest thing to a consensus on this one.
Is there a seconder for that? Rachel, second it?
Call for the question.
Discussion? Are you called for the question, Ron?
Yep.
So this is on the LCLC project. The motion is to reduce that to $1,000 from $2,000. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. So we add $1,000 to the total that Lisa gave us from the beginning. Or to, yeah. The next motion. Lisa? Or B?
I believe the next item was, and B, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, was relating to the Folk Harbor Society Festival sponsorship or, and it was a motion to remove the $1,000 amount.
Discussion. Matt?
Well, I
Well-
tend to agree with the mayor on this one. I have no issue with the $1,000 amount because what it basically amounts to is furloughing the festival. I mean, the grant is not so much about this year's festival, but making sure there are future festivals to be had and supporting that. So I'm good with the $1,000.
Rachel?
And I actually have a different motion, Mr. Chair, so I think I'm going to need some
Please.
clarification. Moved and seconded that we recommend to council a grant to the Luneberg Folk Harbor Festival for support of the summer concert series in the amount of $2,500 with the understanding that they will pay rent for use of the town facility as per past practice. That was deferred, as was the one not to support the festival's general grant request of $5,000 in a separate motion.
Sorry, B, the original motion for the 25, we were trying to take off 600 rent wise, but we decided to charge the rent and leave it at 25. So the motion was withdrawn on the basis that it wouldn't have changed the staff recommendation.
Yeah, they were two separate items. I think what we're talking about now
Yes.
is the $1,000 for the festival. That's the motion we're dealing with now, right? Yes, okay. And then after that, we'll deal with the Sunday concerts. Rachel?
So I think Councillor Mosier was, sorry, Councillor Risser was making that a motion to, yes? to-
No, sorry, the motion was already moved by Councillor Mosier to, as I understand it, remove the funds. And I was just saying I was okay with the request, so I was going to vote against that motion.
Okay.
Peter? Sorry,
Well,
Ron.
I would happily amend my motion to make it for the $1,000. I forget who seconded it.
I think it was me, but that was just for the purposes of advancing debate.
Well,
Or no, it
we
was
can-
Joseph on that one. I was the Foundation for the Arts.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion if my seconder would agree.
To,
Yeah,
Well,
I'm looking for clarity.
I'm confused because wasn't the request $1,000? I know it says 5,000 in there, but
It was recommended by staff for $1,000.
that was based on their discussion.
Yeah, so I would move that we would adopt their recommendation.
Which is a
Change my motion.
$1,000 grant.
Yes.
Thank you. For the festival at large.
Yes.
And Matt seconds it. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Motion's carried. And now we move to the festival. Oh, no, that wasn't, now we move to the summer concert series. And actually, did that require a motion? Because we were gonna leave.
No,
it
that
the
was
way
my
it is.
point. I think there was
Yeah.
general agreement to leave it at
Yeah.
25 and
Okay.
charge the rent.
Next. Next deferred motion.
I didn't have it voted on, if that is of relevance, your worship, because maybe you're going to do it as an omnibus approval of the grants and the revised amounts as the finance staff show in the updated chart.
I think that was the thought, yes.
Then I don't know, B, if B wants to weigh in, the next motion I have is regarding the Luneberg Foundation for the Arts. And a motion to remove the $1,200 amount for that grant.
Correct. That's as I have it recorded, but not voted on.
Discussion, Matt?
Sorry, just on a point of information, Lisa, what are we, so we're up 2,000, so we've got what, 14?
14,115, yes.
And we've got what pending?
Give me a minute on that one.
You're muted. You're muted,
That's
Lisa.
big, I know, because I wasn't talking to council. Kathleen and I were just conferring about which
Oh,
we still had to total up. You, if you want to just give us a minute just to make sure that we aren't missing something for those of the motions that are still pending. I believe the motions that are still pending to discuss could total grants of $4,200. In addition to the 14,115 that we've already agreed upon, I believe.
And that's
Okay.
without any further motions to take anything out?
That is considering each of those items, I guess, Councilor Risser. It is, the way we're doing this is a bit challenging how to capture them for these totals of what you're trying to get at.
I appreciate you're doing the best you can.
okay. So we have the motion to the Foundation of the Arts to remove the $1,200. Discussion, any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor to sorry, Rachel, did you want to jump in?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm not opposed to that at this point. I am supportive certainly of what the Foundation of the Arts does very much for the community, but given what's going on and not knowing how what and if they're able to proceed, and that it is kind of a, you know, they mentioned that it's a general support of other organizations that we're kind of funneling money through, to Councillor Moser's earlier point. I'm not opposed to taking that out at this point in time.
Any further comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Barely. Okay. So, next motion.
B, I don't know if we line up, but I believe the next
The
motion.
C school or
Well, in order of the chart is
St. Vincent?
St. Vincent de Paul was the next motion, though.
Yeah, I recorded them as they are in the list. It's the only way to actually do this.
Well, that's part of part of the challenge is.
So one or t'other.
let's deal with the St. Vincent de Paul one. And I don't know if I mean, I was the one that made the motion, so maybe I need to step aside here and ask Rachel to chair this motion. I don't know.
I think you encouraged putting forward a motion. I don't think you actually made it. I think it was moved. and
No, he
seconded by
made it.
others.
Because I seconded it.
So-
Okay, I stand corrected. Again, I don't record the names of the movers and seconders.
No.
for
So
committee
Rachel,
minutes.
you run this for me.
Pardon me. Oh, well, go ahead and
Please.
speak to it, John.
Since I made the motion, well, no, there's nothing to be said. You know, I think that unlike, let's say, the United Way, which in turn goes to other agencies, you know, this goes directly to residents of town. And you know, I've been involved in the past with helping people pay their heating bills and stuff, and not directly with these guys, but I know they do that. So I think it's worth giving them what they requested. Okay, Peter, I guess I'm still carrying it.
Yeah, I'm in two minds, just to vote yes to get this through, because I'm getting a little tired of this anyway. But the other thing is, I think I won't, because I will stand on principle here that I don't think any tax dollar should be going to charity. It's no difference. We could give it to the United Church and they do the exact same thing. So what happens when the United Church, you know, what's when Central United applies for a grant because they want to help people that are in need, right? So that's just the point on that. And I think when we do write our criteria, it should be in our criteria that no charities of any kind will be recognized in our grant program.
Any further comment, Rachel?
Yeah, I just have to speak somewhat contrary to that, just because I would hope that council wouldn't endeavor to do that, because I think that it's our job to evaluate what's best for our community at any given time. And I take the point, and I understand what Councillor Mosier is saying, and there's certainly merit in that. But when we know that there's benefit to the community, and I have no qualms about putting tax dollars to something that is a direct benefit to the most vulnerable in our community, and that's what this organization does. I would be more supportive of a lesser amount, just because of the times that we're in, as was suggested by staff, but I'm also not opposed to supporting the organization and in this particular instance. But on a broader, on principle case, we did have an opportunity. This council approved the policy that we're working with, and if we had more strict guidelines, that, as has been suggested numerous times today, then we wouldn't have the opportunity to voice what we feel is representative of our community in these discussions. And that includes what I have to say and what Councillor Mosier has to say, and all across the table. But that's what I think we need to do. We need to debate these things. You're never going to come up with policies that cover every question that you have to answer for. That's why we're elected to serve and be to have representative views of the community and weighing in on these decisions.
Other comment? Ready for the question? On the motion to give a grant of $1,000 to the St. Vincent de Paul. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. And is there only one left, Lisa, the C School?
No, there is, I guess, the C School. There is also the Luneberg County Jazz Society.
Right.
And I think we still need to discuss the VON, unless that was finally agreed to leave at the $2,000 amount.
The motion on the C School was what?
Perhaps B, do you have the motion for that?
Was for a $1,000 grant, and then that was deferred.
Discussion? on the C school. Matt,
Sorry, just looking to see how much is left in the till.
So we're at $15,115. And with those three items that we have left to discuss, the $2,000 for the VON, the $1,000 for the C school, and the $2,000 for the Jazz Society, that would bring the total to the $20,115.
And for
So
the love of
most of-
God,
the motion on the floor is $1,000 grant to the C school. Discussion. Ready for the question? All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay. Now, what happened to the Foundation for the Arts?
The
Okay, what's
foundation, we'd already approved the Foundation of the Arts to set it to 0.
Thank you. Next,
The Luneberg County Jazz Society. And there was a motion for $2,000 of support there.
Peter, discussion?
Well, if I did my math correctly, if we subtract $635 off of that, it should break us even with the rest of our thing. That'd be about right, Lisa?
No, we've approved 16,115. And I have the motion for the VON at $2,000 and this at $2,000. So that would actually bring us to 20,115. So if you wanted to break even at the 20, you'd only have to take 115 off.
Okay. All right, well, I'd amend that to take the 115 off.
Matt is, okay, so with Matt, I'm sorry, Peter, you're withdrawing the first motion then? And Matt is agreeing with that and then you're resubmitting it? Is that what's happening? At 2,000 less 150?
1985 by my count.
How about 1885?
I wasn't good at math.
That's all right.
Discussion. Rachel,
I don't, as I mentioned earlier, I'm sure this is a very worthy organization, but I would like to see more relevance to our community specifically. We do get asked often for grants from everyone because they sort of blanket request funds from every possible funding source, and I don't blame them. I would do the same thing. But I think in this particular case, it's, just to get done with the discussion is not a good enough rationale, and just to try to top out on our maximum allowable. I agree with what the deputy mayor said earlier. There are always after asks after these discussions and for very, very worthy causes in some instances. So I'm not in favor of tapping all of our funds if we don't think it's meritorious, and so I wouldn't be supporting the motion.
Ron?
Thank you. I have to side with the mayor on this one. From what I saw in their proposal, there's absolutely no guarantee or no merit that, other than them maybe stopping at town, that there's anyone from town that's really going to benefit from this as an instructor or as a student. So I can't support it either.
Other comments? Ready for the question? The motion is to remind me of the amount, 1875?
1885.
1885 to the jazz group. All in favor? Opposed? I'm sorry, Joseph, were you raising your hand there? Sorry, Joseph, I couldn't, were you? Okay.
Yeah, I was raising my hand.
I'll do a recount. All in favor? Joseph, I can't tell if you're in favor.
He
or
was,
not.
he said he was.
Okay. Okay, opposed. Motion is tied and therefore defeated. And Lisa, next.
Then the next one would be to discuss the amount of the VON grant. And I believe there was a motion to leave it at the $2,000 amount.
Discussion. No discussion? Okay, you ready for the question? All in favor of $2,000 for the VON? Unanimously carried. So, was there anything left, Lisa?
No, I believe that has covered every item. And so that brings the total to $18,115 on this list. If council wishes, I can go at the beginning and just quickly recap the dollar amounts for each one, or we can just go with that total.
I'm fine with just going for that total. I'm sure you've done a fine job of keeping track of it. But
Kathleen's also recording on the.
that said, I mean, does anybody want to make any other changes to that list? Peter, you want to speak up?
Well, I just wanted to move the list as presented then.
Seconder for that? Matt? Okay. I personally, I really like this. I think we've left a bit of a I guess, a bit of a fund that, because these are going to be tough times, I think. And anyways, so any discussion of, so the total is 18,000 and
18,115.
okay.
And so that will leave you with 1,885 of your budget, should there be other requests during the year.
Ron, did you want to comment?
I just wanted to, I think a couple of people have already expressed their thanks to staff for the way this was done this year. For me, it was a big benefit. I appreciate the work that went into it. And I do think it helped with the discussion and sped it along. So again, just thanks for the hard work that staff did for the proposal that they put before us.
Rachel?
Thanks, I echo that very much. And also I do, as much as my council colleagues dislike this discussion, I find it very helpful, and I think it's does serve a purpose, and thank them all for the debate and the discussion on these issues.
And if I can comment, I would sort of echo the same thing, that, you know, these are small dollar amounts, but they're major to some of these organizations. And so, you know, I would not want to see us not have this discussion. So anyways, we do have a motion on the floor, I believe. So, no, or was it passed?
No, it wasn't. It hasn't been voted on.
Okay, thank you. I'm hoping you're keeping an eye on me here. So, okay, all in favor? Opposed? None? Okay, good job.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconder for that? Oh, no, wait, any other? Okay. Ron will second it. And no other comments for the good of town. Okay. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you again on well, tomorrow on the audit meeting. Yeah. Thanks.
See everybody
Have a
tomorrow.
good afternoon, everyone.